Imagine this. You're deep in the wilderness. The sun is setting, temperatures are dropping, and rain clouds are rolling in fast. You reach into your pack, only to realize your fire starter is missing, your shelter is leaking, and that knife you trusted? It's as dull as the weather. Let me tell you, mistakes like these don't just ruin your trip, they could cost you everything. Today, I'm breaking down the 7 most common gear mistakes bushcrafters make. And stick around, because number 6? That one almost ended my trip, and I'll explain why it's the one mistake you never want to make. The first mistake starts before you even leave your house. Choosing the wrong backpack. Your pack isn't just a storage bag, it's your survival system. And trust me, picking the wrong one is like setting yourself up to fail. You might think that any backpack will do, but the reality is far from that. Let me tell you about a trip I took years ago. I thought I had it all figured out. A flashy pack that looked cool but wasn't built for the terrain. By mile 10, the straps gave out, leaving me stranded with a busted pack and bruised shoulders. I was forced to empty my gear and carry it by hand, which drained my energy and put me in a dangerous position. So, what should you look for? Focus on quality, comfort, and durability. Here's how to avoid my mistake. Choose a pack that fits your torso length and has a durable frame. Look for features like padded straps, a hip belt, and weatherproofing. A good backpack distributes the weight evenly, keeps your gear dry, and supports your body over long distances. Test it out fully loaded before your trip and practice packing it efficiently. This one step alone can save you from a world of trouble. The backpack you choose will become your lifeline out there. Make sure it's the right one. A dull knife in the wilderness is worse than useless. It's dangerous. I learned this lesson the hard way. Picture this. I was trying to carve tinder for a fire on a freezing night. My knife slipped, and instead of shaving wood, I sliced my hand. That mistake taught me one thing. Never underestimate the importance of a sharp, reliable blade. A dull blade doesn't just fail at cutting. It forces you to apply more force, which increases the risk of injury. So what should you do? Start with high-quality steel and keep it well maintained. Regularly sharpen your knife with a whetstone or a portable sharpener. After every use, clean it thoroughly to prevent rust, and apply a thin layer of oil. A good knife should be as sharp as a razor, but also protected from the elements. The importance of maintaining your knife can't be overstated. It's one of your most vital tools for shelter, fire, and food. And don't forget, always carry a backup tool like a smaller, fixed-blade knife or multi-tool. That way, if your main knife breaks, you have a reliable second option. Let's talk about weatherproofing, or as I like to call it, the difference between a fun trip and a freezing nightmare. I've been there, caught in a downpour, gear soaked, and nothing to keep me warm. It's not just uncomfortable, it's dangerous. I remember one time, I was halfway through a solo trip and a surprise storm hit. My shelter wasn't up to the task. I had a cheap tent, and water started leaking through. By the time I realized what was happening, my sleeping bag was soaked, and my firewood was too wet to light. That night, I learned that gear needs to stand up to the elements, because the wilderness will throw everything at you. Here's your shield against the elements. Always carry a waterproof tarp and use dry bags for essentials like fire starters, clothes, and electronics. Keep your sleeping bag in a sealed bag and use a rain cover for your pack. When setting up camp, choose high ground and check for signs of potential flooding. Look for sheltering trees or rock formations, and don't underestimate the power of wind and rain. A little preparation here can be a lifesaver. Before we move on, let me ask you this. Have you ever thought about what happens when everything goes wrong? When your gear fails and you're miles away from help? Hold that thought, because we're coming back to it later. It's a classic rookie mistake, overpacking. You think, what if I need this or that? Before you know it, your pack weighs more than you do, and every step feels like torture. I've seen it happen time and time again. You start off light, but then you throw in extra gear just in case. But here's the thing, every ounce counts. The heavier your pack, the more energy you'll waste, and the harder it will be to navigate tough terrain. I once tried to carry a full set of cooking gear, a heavy tent, and extra clothes that I never even used. By the end of the day, I was exhausted and ready to quit. The fix? Go minimalist. Focus on multi-use items like a multi-tool instead of multiple knives. Bring lightweight cookware and only pack what you'll actually eat. A lighter pack means more energy and less strain, and trust me, you'll thank yourself on mile 12. Plus, with less weight, you'll be able to move faster and more efficiently. There's nothing worse than struggling with unfamiliar gear in the wild. I'll never forget my first solo trip, brand new stove, never tested. It worked fine at home, but in the cold wind, it wouldn't light. That mistake left me eating raw oatmeal for 2 days. Test everything before you go. Pitch your tent, light your stove, and practice starting a fire with your chosen tools. This way, you'll know exactly what works and avoid nasty surprises. I also recommend practicing in similar conditions to what you expect on your trip: windy, rainy, or cold. That way, you'll be prepared for the worst, even if your stove works fine in your living room. Feet are your most important tool in the wild, and the wrong footwear can wreck them. Picture this: blisters the size of quarters, soaking wet socks, and no way to keep going. I've been there, and I wouldn't wish it on anyone. I made the mistake of wearing cheap sneakers on a rugged trail once. By mile 5, my feet were in so much pain I could barely walk. The soles wore down, and the shoes didn't provide the ankle support I needed. The fix? Always wear broken-in hiking boots with proper support and waterproofing. Pair them with moisture-wicking socks, and bring extras to swap out when needed. Your feet will thank you after a long day of hiking. Lastly, and perhaps most importantly, never underestimate the power of practice. Sure, you've watched survival videos and read the books, but have you actually practiced your skills? I can't stress enough how critical this is. You can't rely solely on your gear, because no piece of equipment will save you if you don't know how to use it. Whether it's fire making, shelter building, or navigation, every skill needs to be second nature. I recommend practicing these skills regularly, ideally in the conditions you expect on your trip. Remember, skills are your true survival gear. I've made these mistakes, and I'm sure some of you have too. But the beauty of bushcraft is that we learn from them. Now that you know the top 7 mistakes to avoid, it's time to get out there and make better choices. Because out in the wild, there's no room for failure. Stay sharp, stay prepared, and stay safe. If you found these tips helpful, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe for more bushcraft and survival content. And leave a comment. Tell me about the gear mistakes you've made or learned from. I'll see you next time. Hopefully, in a place where everything works just as it should.